I'm your host, Emilia, an experiencer of cryptids. Today, my guest is former mayor and renowned Bigfoot experiencer, Darrell Denton, the Tennessee Bigfoot Man. From two Real Cryptid Legends, their radio show, viewable on YouTube. They are on 281 FM radio and 312 AM stations all around the world. They are live on Monday nights on Roku TV. A few weeks back, they had their largest audience ever, over 2,800,000. Almost 3 million listeners around the world. Well, hello, Darrell.
Well, hello. How are you today? It's finally got together for a chance here. This is great.
I know. I think it's been about a year of us trying because there's just so much going on.
This is definitely my busiest time of the year, so I'm glad to be able to get it in. The daytime ones are better for me anyway. I think I've had quite a few people reach out to me this month, and I'd already had something in the evening, and the daytime one is a lot better. So, and I've really slowed down on a lot of these because I've done so many, and I just feel like people have heard my stories and my encounters, and I'd rather do question and answer on some of them, especially some of the ones I've been on 3 or 4 times.
I understand that. I have to tell you, I was telling my husband and my daughter, because she comes home every day from school and hears your voice. And I was like, I love hearing Darrell talk, whether it's on the phone or on one of your podcasts or just anything, because it's very soothing. It makes me very
relaxed. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have kind of a deep voice, and, I just got back from the Pennsylvania conference yesterday afternoon, and I don't know how many people have mentioned that to me. Mike says, your voice is perfect for the radio, and I don't ever really think about it. It's just who I am. So, some people have a different type voice than others, and mine happens to be a radio type voice, I'm told. So, I guess that works okay.
I agree. I really do. I love it. Well, I wanted to know if maybe you could start with something real special to me. It was the night that the moon changed. The psychic called, didn't know y'all was there. All the different experiences and encounters you had that night. Would you mind maybe starting with that?
Yeah, well, the psychic calling was Beth Collinsworth, one of my close friends from Wilson County, Tennessee. That was a different night. That was a night the dogmans had surrounded us in the LBL, and that was March of 23. The other one was probably the same year, but it was either April or May, and we were in the LBL having what we call at that time a Brotherhood of the Wolf meeting, which Barton Nunley and myself and Martin Groves called it, and Barton still calls it that. That was my team for researching for a great number of years, plus Ron Morehead, and but he wasn't there. But that particular night was it was definitely the strangest thing that I've ever witnessed in my life when the moon changed like that. But it did, and we had plenty of witnesses that seen it too. I think there were 17 or 18 people there that witnessed that and couldn't believe what they were seeing. So I'll start off with the one. I'll start off with that one. Then I'll go to the one where Beth called, if that's okay with you. So.
Anything you want to share? I just thought that was one of the most extraordinary.
Sure, that was like I said, it's what Barton Nunley has. He has an area at the Land Between the Lakes. Normally it's at Hillman's Ferry, but not always. Hillman's Ferry Campground. That's the safest spot in the LBL, in my opinion. And the LBL is the Land Between the Lakes of Tennessee and Kentucky, in case the listeners don't know what that is. And he has a get-together about 3 or 4 times a year, and he invites people that he wants to be around, and they become members of the Brotherhood of the Wolf under his say so. And it's a good, friendly event. Everybody gets along. Everybody has a good time, and we cook out and hang out and tell some stories and just enjoy company with each other. And then we'll travel off into different areas and look for something. So it's not like we normally do when it's Barton, Martin, Ron, and myself when we go off into an area that I wouldn't take a normal person, because some of those areas are really dangerous, and they're even dangerous for us. So, I'm not really afraid of anything in the forest there. I know that things can harm me, but I have a thing inside of me that I feel comfortable, that makes me feel like I'm always guarded and watched over when I'm around these creatures, and not all of them are friendly. Anyway, I'll start off. We were all sitting around the campfire that evening, and we had rented cabins in the Hillman Ferry campground. I think we had 6 or 7 cabins, and 2 or 3 people, or a couple people had just their own cabin, them and their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. We were hanging out, and we had grilled out that night, and we were all just talking about different things that we had all experienced. And these were people that were regulars there, that with us, and had come quite often, and pretty much were there on any of those events. And we decided we would split up in 3 teams, and there was a couple of children there with one of the ladies, her grandchildren, and they did not go, and one of that lady stayed back with them. But the first group that went out was a buddy of mine named War Criminal, is what he goes by. Him and Gabby and Elijah Henderson. And most everybody knows who Elijah and Gabby Henderson are. They have Cryptid Studies Institute, and their dad was the late, great Johnny Henderson, who did a lot of filming in the LBL and had a lot of experiences, and he passed away about 3 years ago from COVID, very young age. And then there was another group of Letitia Nunley, Barton Nunley's wife, Anna K. Wood Jones, and another lady, and I don't recall her name. It was a friend of Anna's. That was a 3 group, and both of them took off in different directions in their vehicles, and were driving to an area that we've had experiences at, or we have heard or seen things at. And the LBL is such a vast area. It's 170,000 acres of national forestry land. And there are roads. There's one main road that goes from one end of the park to the other end of the park, and it's called the Trace. But there are roads off to the right, the left. I mean, there's so many roads back in there. Some of them are gravel roads. Some of them are dirt roads. Some of them are paved roads. It's hundreds of roads. And if you don't know where you're at and you don't know that area, you can very easily get lost back in there. So they headed out, and Martin, myself, and Martin Groves, Barton Nunley, and myself, and the lady with the 2 kids, were all sitting around the campfire waiting on them to get back. And then Martin and myself and Barton were going to go out. So we're sitting around the campfire, and all of a sudden, it's a clear full moon that night, beautiful night. We had something behind the cabin that was looking at us, and we weren't sure if it was a juvenile Bigfoot or a full-grown one, but we could see eyeshine. It would peek around a tree. It was probably a good 75 yards from us, but we could see it moving, and we were all kind of fixed on that, and we could hear it breaking branches and stuff back there. So it wasn't trying to harm us. It was just checking us out, whatever it may have been, and I do believe it was probably a juvenile. But all of a sudden, we're all talking and having a drink, and we had just finished up dinner, and just regular conversation, talking about where we think we should go and what we'd seen in there before, and trying to be very cautious with this lady and her children, her grandchildren. But anyway, all of a sudden, the moon turns to like a orange-red color. I mean, just completely turned to that color. There wasn't any wind or any crazy trees bending over, nothing crazy like that. We just watched it change from a white, clear moon into that color. It was very strange, and it, of course, dimmed up the area because we had a lot of light with that full moon, and you could actually see the area dimming as it was changing, and it wasn't as bright outside where we could see as well. And we're all talking about it. Like, what? How did that happen? What is going on? Is there supposed to be a blood moon tonight? And we've all got our phones out trying to see if there's some kind of moon phase that we hadn't caught before. And there was nothing. There was nothing listed as that or nothing happening as that. And so these two research teams are out driving to their areas, and we get a call from war criminal, and he's just I can't remember if it's him or Gabby, which is Elijah's sister, called and said, "This is the strangest thing we've ever seen." And we're sitting at the camp, and there's hundreds of snakes crossing the road. We're on the trace, and they're just coming from everywhere. Snakes are just crossing the road. We've never seen anything like it. Did y'all see the moon? I said, yes, the moon changed. And then they said there's just deer running everywhere across the road like they're running from something. And then we're on the phone with them, and they let us go, or we lost reception because reception's hard to keep there. And then all of a sudden we didn't hear from them for a while, and pretty much we then got a message or a call from, I believe it was Anna Kaywood that was with Letitia Nunley, and they had stopped their car in the middle of the trace area because a mothman had landed in front of their vehicle. And I said, are you sure it's a mothman? They said it's not a full-grown, like, tall mothman like we've seen on the reenactments or the videos. It's a little one. It's short, but it's got huge red eyes. It's got a head. It's got wings. We're sitting here looking at it, and it's staring at us, and it won't move and let our car around it. Well, they looked at it and looked at it. I think they tried to take some pictures of it. I'm not sure that they were ever able to get one, but they were pretty weirded out by this thing landing in front of the car and stopping them in the road like that. And eventually it flew off, and they were so freaked out they came back to camp and were so excited. They were telling us about it. They couldn't believe they'd seen this thing. And then shortly after that, Matt, or War Criminal, came back with Gabby and Elijah, and they're all excited because right after we lost reception from them, they see this creature that looked like a dog-headed creature, like a spider crawling across the road right in front of their vehicle. And it's all spread out, and it's spider crawling like I've seen Bigfoot do before. And but it's got a dog head on it, and it looks back at them, and it goes off over a ravine. And they're all excited because they seen that, and they come back to camp, and I believe it was right before they got back to camp, the moon just comes back to the original color that it was. White, clear, area was lit up. It was really super strange. I don't know how to explain it, but it really happened, and everybody there seen it, and we couldn't figure out what was going on with that. So nothing else really happened. We went out later, myself and Barton Nunley and Martin Groves, and Elijah went with us because he has what's called a thing that we use in the woods sometimes to get a call from a strange creature that lives there, and it's called an Aztec death whistle, and he can blow it really loud. He's really good with it. He also has a recording of it, too, on his machine. And we went out and blew that thing. Right as we went in the woods, there was a certain area that we had seen some things in. We heard stuff running through the woods, breaking down. I mean, just something big took off running and smashing stuff. And we never seen what that was, but he blew that whistle in there a couple of times, and it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. And we didn't get any activity from the whistle. We didn't get any activity at all. That's pretty much all we got was the noise we heard going in, and we pretty much packed up and came back an hour or two later. And we walked around that area, but didn't get anything at all. But that's pretty much what happened on that particular case.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, I didn't know that you saw, or I didn't know Mothman was seen. And I had just shared this, myself and Elizabeth Saint, we just shared this on a couple podcasts. And
Yeah,
I remember when I saw them, the Mothman, two different kinds. I saw a really big one, and then I saw one perched because I had built a house on my ranch that had the big cedar beams, and you make the star
right.
formation, and it was sitting on there, and I had like a 40-foot
Yeah,
bolt, and we had the worst fires in Texas that I had ever seen, and floods and everything else. So I wasn't aware of that
wow.
part. And
Well,
you
I
had
personally, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no. Go ahead, tell me.
I personally never seen a Mothman. I have never seen an alien. I've never seen a Mothman. I've seen a lot of Bigfoot, and I've seen four dogmen, and I've seen a crawler. Don't care to see another one of those. But
Those are strange. When I talk to the angels and I record them, they speak of dogman and that they are different from werewolves, rakes as crawlers. And here's
mhm.
another interesting thing I'd like to bring up to you. So we talked last year before, it was right before the holidays, and I had been told, I sat down and I record everything, and I'm like, okay, angels, what can you tell me about the blast that hit me, Martin, and Darrell that made us all sick? We all had very similar situations. I had heart issues, vertigo, I couldn't stand for days. I was in the hospital. They put needles in my spine. They could not figure out what it was. I had the worst migraine of my life. I'll never forget. They gave me morphine, and the migraine still wouldn't go away. And they said it was black. They call it black infrasound. And when it blasts us, it blasts our light that we walk with from, the heavens, and that it can cause heart attacks, and it can make people very sick. And then so I started reading Ron Morehead's book because you had sent me, or on Facebook or something, one particular podcast y'all did. It may have been like the first one. I know it was the first one I ever saw Ron on. And he was talking about this frequency. And I'm like, that's all these other beings that I've encountered my whole life have ever talked about, is these different frequencies. And, that's how we're able to channel as psychic mediums and, see things and things manifest. Because they talked about the different kinds of Bigfoots. They talked about the woodburgers and how aliens are involved with those, and that the woodburgers don't mean any harm. They actually study all the plants, but they can come off very aggressive, which made sense. Then they said there are evil and good Bigfoots, Sasquatches. And then so I'm recording angels saying all this, and I'm documenting everything. Well, then I watched the one you sent me 2 weeks ago with Tim Coonbow Baker.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. That he's amazing, like you. And so I started thinking, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on around these creatures with frequency. But when he was talking about the good Sasquatch and the bad ones, there's actually a cop up in Maine who he gives toys and food to this Sasquatch family. I mean, he's like at the top of Maine, past Bangor, Maine. And he got them on his game camera, and he's not sure when he wants to share this yet. We're working on that. But he talks about good ones and bad ones too. And you've met, like, physically spent time with Sasquatch families, correct?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say, of course, Ron is one of my closest friends I've ever had, Ron Morehead, and he is probably the top of the field in quantum physics, in my opinion. He studies it regularly every day, every day. he sends me clips of something that he's learned that day on a regular basis. And, his book, Quantum, is probably the best book that I've ever read in my life. It really breaks down how these creatures have such a higher vibration than we do, and they're able to transform themselves into different realities than we are. And I do believe that, and I know that Ron is super intuitive with that type thing, and he's taught me a lot with that. And his abilities with learning the higher vibration and the third eye, which we all have. Practicing that third eye is also an issue that everyone needs to know how to do. We'd all be a lot better off. But
I agree.
Ron. Ron's extraordinary. He really is. He has been such a good friend to me, and of course he's my radio partner, and just such a true person that I don't think Ron Morehead has a bad vibe for anybody, and I just love him like my brother. And but as far as the some of the other things that you mentioned, I do believe that some of these creatures have the ability to do certain things that other ones don't. Now, I've personally seen what I believe to be 4 or 5 different type. They don't like to be called Bigfoot, so I call them either creatures or forest people. So I'm sure there may be 25 different types. I have no idea how many different types there are, but I know I've seen 4 or 5 different, completely different looking ones. My wood booger being my first one, which was definitely the ugliest, meanest one that I've ever seen, and hope I never see another one. But that was in Tennessee, and my reading and studying on those creatures back in the 90s when there was no radio or a podcast or groups. You didn't know what to do. You were just stuck with your own issue of dealing with this. And those creatures mainly live in Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Kentucky. That's about the area they live in. So,
and Texas.
And they live in Texas. Okay, they probably could be in every state, but it seems to be that the biggest concentration of them are those 4 states. And I'd never heard of one until I had my first encounter. My granddad called them that. So after looking pictures of them up, that's what I seen. As far as the infrasound or the zapping, like you were talking about a minute ago, I personally believe 100% that it's not infrasound. I believe it is radiation, and the reason why I'm saying that because we've done a lot of studies. I've been zapped or infrasound 3 times myself. Twice with Bigfoot, once with a dogman. They were different. The Bigfoot was different than the dogman zapping or whatever we'd like to call it. Martin has probably been zapped. I know he's been zapped 4 times, maybe more, because I think he was zapped one time when he wasn't with me. He and I are pretty much together forever on just about every adventure until the last year or two, because I spent a lot of my time with my lady in a different state, so I'm not as available as I used to be. But, it can make you sick. The Bigfoot one seems to it's more of an upset stomach. It's more of a headache. It's more like your legs went to sleep. You can't hardly move them. And you're a little lethargic. You're trying to figure out what I'm doing here. But, Martin taught me a lot since that's happened to me. It probably took me 25, 30 minutes to get completely back to my normal self after my first zapping or infrasounding, and thank God it wasn't one that was trying to kill me because it would have, but the second one wasn't quite as long because Martin had found a way that worked, and if you're a believer like I am, everybody has their own rights to believe and not believe in Jesus Christ, but I do, and if you start praying in Jesus Christ's name, the zapping or the infrasound goes away very, very fast.
Well, so more on that, just for the listeners. So I have released this to the public last year. Another thing I asked when I was asking what was making us sick, that we were getting blasted with. They say blasted. They said praying will help protect you. And they do talk about Jesus all the time. They talk about Jesus, heaven, the God, the creator. It's very beautiful. And the angels do talk about them and how they did say, they even told me Jesus and God saved your life when I came face to face with one of these things, and I got a picture of it. And they are hideous looking. But I wanted
my personal experience, since I've been zapped twice since Martin told me that the first time, and it has definitely made a difference. And, what I witnessed in the second encounter that you were talking about, I'll go into that when you want me to, when we were surrounded by dogmen. But Martin Groves did the most amazing thing that I've ever witnessed from him. And Martin Groves has been my best friend 46 years. I was in a political office, elected official for about 24 years as a commissioner and a mayor. And Martin was one of the chief deputies on the county at that time. And I had my first experience in '92. He had his first experience 4 months later when a dogman tried to eat him in the LBL. So we just happened to be that close anyway. It happened to be in the same county together, 15 minutes from each other's home. And, he was the only one I could talk to. We'd go to lunch. We'd talk about what happened. He had PTSD until 2022. I had it up to about that time before we could tell anybody because, we started the first Bigfoot, we started the very first Bigfoot cryptid group on Facebook in 2014 or 15, and that was called Blue Ridge, Sasquatch, and Crypto with Michael Patterson. And that group is still there. Michael Patterson's in my group and a leader in my group, and I'm still in that too. But I started my group for one reason. I won't get into those details, but mainly because I don't believe in criticism or ridicule about anybody or anybody about their stories. Because I live that, and so did Martin. 2022, he came out and told his story in the first annual Dogman conference in Land Between the Lakes of Paris, Tennessee. And it was the most astounding thing that I've ever witnessed. I could literally see the feeling of relief coming out of him as he was saying that. His tears rolled down his face, and he told it in front of a massive audience, and it was an incredible witness thing to see, and it was so good to see him be relieved and be able to get that off his shoulders after all those years. And, but anyway, getting back to Martin, he and I have been through a lot of stuff together. In the LBAL, we've been in there so many years together, researching areas that I wouldn't take anyone. So I wouldn't suggest anybody to go to the Land Between the Lakes of Tennessee and Kentucky unless you know where you're going, and don't go in the woods at night unless you know where you're at, because when the lights go out there, it's a different world.
Well, and you're not wrong. And for the listeners, when they hear this, I want y'all to know, I asked about LBL, and the angel said there are dogmen, werewolves, dogman Sasquatch hybrids, the government stuff, and they said they like to eat the buffalo, I think it was, and I didn't even know that there were buffalo in the LBL. I did not know. And they said that there are these, I asked where they were coming from. I told you this last year, but I need everyone to hear this because it's released to the public and published in books. The radiation that y'all detected on the foot track, I believe, of a Sasquatch, correct? Not a dog.
Right. That's correct.
I asked where that came
from. Well, we did not detect that. I don't ever take credit when credit's not due. But Hellbent Holler, Joe and Jesse Dole detected that with a Geiger counter.
Yes, Darrell did tell me that before. Forgive me, I forget the name.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, I asked where the radiation was coming from. They talked about, they told me the Sasquatch and some of the Sasquatch and dogmen work together hunting at night, especially. But not all the Sasquatch. Said the good ones will move away. It was very interesting.
100%. 100%.
I recorded people saying this. Then they said that they go through, when they see hunters, they said specifically when the Sasquatch and dogmen see hunters, they swim through the water to get away to where they're not seen. So that was interesting with the tracks leading to the water, with some other cases as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing you said that. Because we have an area that one certain area where that is very true.
Really? I'd love to see those tracks. Well, then they told me that they were telling me this leading to the radiation. Well, I was like, well, I still don't understand where the radiation's coming from. They said a nexus. And I said, well, why don't you say it, what a nexus is, so the people can hear the angels say it? And they said a nexus is a portal, but they can be unstable. So anything, good or bad, from different dimensions and worlds, they said, can come through back and forth, and that causes the radiation to track in their footprints. Then they mentioned ley lines, something about ley lines.
Yeah.
Do you know any? I'm sure you know something about that.
Yeah, I know. I found out in the past that I 100% definitely believe that, the ley lines are everywhere, all across the world. The ancient Egyptians actually used ley lines to build the pyramids. The actual pinpoint area of where they crisscross and joined into one, because the actual activity as far as solar and lunar is stronger there because of the magnetic field. So if you can find an area, and a lot of the areas that we researched, we were close to one of those areas. If you can find an area where the ley lines crisscross numerous times and forms like a circle, and there's a lot of those areas. There seems to be more activity in those areas. And it also lines up with all the missing people in the U.S. across the United States map. And it also lines up with the entire cave system across the U.S. You lay all three of those on top of each other, it's amazing how it looks. They all line up.
That's interesting, because they all go back, the angels always go back to frequency with this stuff. And then I have to tell you something else. I think I told you last year, I don't recall, but I asked why there was so much activity in LBL with dogman, werewolf. They're very specific about them being different. They said a dogman, I asked what the difference was. They said a dogman was a man that was cursed, and he can change back and forth, and they mention about bites. And then they go back into Native American stuff. Then they said the werewolves were born soulless, which was interesting. And they did say, forgive me to the listeners, but I have to be honest, they said that werewolves serve the devil. And I have it recorded. And
I do not doubt that. I really don't. I don't doubt that a bit. But I think you're probably onto something there. But the dogmen, I do not believe all dogmen are evil.
Right.
And I don't believe any of these creatures are all evil. I mean, there's good and bad in everything, just like us humans, So,
well, they said there's good and bad ones, but they said they said, quote, there are pure evil ones, and they said it about a picture of it. And as a psychic medium, I can feel the different energy, whether it's soulless or not. Yeah. And the one I got a picture of, I'll never forget what that felt like. It was black void, like evil. And I've died, Darrell. Okay, I've seen the light, I've seen the darkness. It's just, it's crazy. But
it's kind of funny. I was at the gym last week before I left to go to the conference in Pennsylvania. I try to go 3 or 4 days a week, and there was a guy in the gym that I'd never seen before, and I was just working out normally, and he walked up to me and said, "Are you the Tennessee Bigfoot man?" And I said, "Well, a lot of people call me that in Tennessee. I got the nickname from being around these amazing human hybrids. That's how I got the nickname." And he said, "I've seen some of your stories. It's pretty remarkable." He goes, "Let me tell you about one of my stories that I've had." And he said, "I never believed in these things until last year." Not going to drag this out a long time, but he told me a pretty much incredible story of an accidental encounter he had. And he also told me, which I've been told by many people, that after he's seen this creature, he still sees it. It doesn't want to go away from him. It's like it's following him.
I can tell you that then too.
And I know from me, I have a very unique ability. I don't know if it's because of my American native heritage or not, or how I did it. I never thought I'd be in this anyway. I mean, this was the furthest thing from my dream in '92 when I had my first encounter. I'd be into this type of stuff, but
Yeah.
It's a way of life now. But these I can go into the woods or the forest, or I can be riding down the highway, and all of a sudden I feel one.
Yeah.
And I'll slow down, and my lady goes, "What is it? You feel one, don't you?" And it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Maybe once every 4 or 5 months, or sometimes twice in a couple of weeks, and then I don't do it again for. Yeah, I don't know when it's going to happen, but when I go into the woods, Martin always asks me, "You feel anything?" No, don't feel anything. And I'll go a little further. Yep, they're on the left. I could feel them. And he has the same ability with the dogman. Now, how do we have that ability to do that? I don't know.
Let me just tell you. So I wrote about this in my first book in 2019 when I talked about my ranch in Texas, where I came face to face with these beings, a mothman and other creatures, a translucent owl. I got pictures of everything. And I talked about how wherever I was, we could feel. I knew exactly where it was. I could be like, it's over there. It's over there. Or we would look and we would see it. Everybody who was there, even the kids. So I asked the angels about this year after year, day after day, and they said, we're hybrids. I know how it sounds. It's coming out with the government, though, my dear. Oh, Lordy, I know how this sounds, but I'm telling the truth, and that's why I document what I do. We have a very high frequency that is very ethereal in nature, and we have a lot of protection and a major guide team around us helping us because we're channeling. We can sense these energies like we're blind but can see everything. And it's interesting because it goes back, like I was asking some questions. I was like, well, why are all these NEXUS portals opening? And I said, how many? They said thousands will be. And I said, why? Why are there so many dogmen and the darker Sasquatch kind of coming in like crazy? They said they're mating, dark mating, verbatim. And I said, what is that? You know what that is. They said spawn and offspring for some holy war. They said you need to fight back in the holy war that's coming. And then I was like, okay. Well, one night, this was back in October. I come into my office, I do my sessions with the angels, I ask questions that I see y'all have, I ask questions I have from what I've seen. And one day, I told my husband, I was like, there was something outside of the house and I could feel it. And then sometimes I'll have dreams about it. I didn't even ask the angels. I asked them a different question, but they add things in as warnings after they said you need to pray because it will help protect you. And they've always told me to pray. They say when Jesus Christ comes back with Muhammad, you need to follow them. All the hybrids and prophets will be, walk with Jesus. It's interesting. So they said in that session, they're like, there was a werewolf outside your house last night. And I was like, now we've had some strange stuff happen. We have a tower. My husband heard some things too. He's heard these things howl. I remember. I'll never forget it. I talk about it in the books and podcasts and things. But you have angels saying all these things. Psychic mediums channeling the same things. But I can also record them. It's a frequency, ethereal frequency that I'm able to open up this nexus where angels can be documented. And it's all through frequency. It's just a voice recorder in the room. And then I usually have witnesses watching. So I don't know what you believe, but it always comes to be true. My life. You're some kind of you're obviously gifted. You obviously have abilities. We know this. You're coming into them, I think, a little bit more than rapidly. But then add in being a target to all these entities, which the angels do refer to the dark ones, the dark Sasquatch, or the dark werewolves. They refer to the werewolves as demons. They actually said that multiple times. And I know people don't like the terminology, but these are angels saying it. I'm recording it and putting it out there for the world. And then the angels are telling me to publish this in books, which I am, and I did. It's called Cryptid Nexus.
Well, the American Native people do believe what you're saying, and most all of them are very spiritual, and they have beliefs of their forefathers have told them and what will come and what will not come. And I know for a fact that the creature you're talking about, the American Native people they call it the shapeshifter, and the Wendigo. So it's
Angels have said that word too as well.
I was going to finish up and tell you about when we were in there when Beth called us. Pretty much, if you want me to do that, it won't take long for that particular issue. But we were in the LBL and in a certain area that we call Area 23, and it was Barton Nunley and Martin Groves and myself, and we had a guy named Mark Maychek that come in with us in that area in the daytime, and we had grilled out that afternoon, and he won't stay there at night. Now, Mark has passed away this last February, so rest his soul, but he wouldn't stay there. When it got dark, he would not stay in the LBL, and he'd been in there all of his life, and he had a lot of things that he's seen and witnessed, so he definitely wouldn't stay in Area 23. He left before it got dark, and we just got through cleaning up our area, and we were ready to camp for the night, and all of a sudden there's a small juvenile behind a log up on the hill to the right of us and moving around. You could see it run real quick between the log and stop and peek over the log. And I don't know why it did it, but all of a sudden it or another one we didn't see infrasounded or zapped Martin. He was the closest to these beings. He was sitting at a table next to the wood line, and he got really sick. Actually, his vehicle was backed up into that spot, not very far from where he was sitting, and he said, "Bubba, can you take me to the restroom? I feel like I'm going to throw up. I'm really getting sick." And there's a restroom probably about 3/4 of a mile from there at a campground. And I did. I drove him down there, and he went inside and got to feeling better, and then came back and got in. But he still wasn't himself. We come back up in there. Martin has stayed there the whole time we were gone. He said he felt safe, no problem. It still was daylight. So as the night went on, Martin was still super sick, the sickest I've ever seen him until last year. But he felt again like his stomach, like he was going to, having it throw up again. Said, "Can you run me back down there? I think I'm going to have to go again." So he went down there, and he didn't. He just stayed in there a few minutes, and at that time it had gotten dark. And this is a remote area too. Not many people camp in this spot. I just took him there because it was a public restroom and has a light and mirror and of course bathroom facilities there. And I'm standing watching guard at the door, and I'm hearing something walking in the woods behind this restroom, and it's loud. And I'm thinking, boy, we got a creature that's behind this restroom, and then it started throwing sticks and huge walnuts on top of the metal roof that Martin was in there. And he was coming out, and we could hear this thing moving around back there. And all I had was a real bright flashlight. I did not have a weapon. You got to be careful in the LBL with weapons. So, I do have a carry permit, but you're not really supposed to use those in the national park. So I try to follow the rules. I don't care about getting arrested by anybody. So we quickly get in the vehicle, and about that time, Martin sees a dogman run from one corner of behind the restroom across the road that we're on. I did not see it, but he did. I could tell that it was kind of scared him a little bit because it was not acting normal. So we go back down and back up into that spot again. And Martin is leaned back in his driver's side of his vehicle with the windows down. I'm sitting over next to this little table in a chair next to Barton, and we've got a fire going pretty good at this time. And we start hearing coyotes, and it's a large pack of coyotes straight ahead of in front of us was a huge hill, and Barton and I had climbed it the day before. Martin's not able to climb that type of hill, but we had climbed it the day before, and it's a good 45-degree angle hill, and it's probably 300 yards to the top. It's way up there. We hear these coyotes coming from on top of that hill, and they're getting closer and closer, and it sounds like there's 10 or 12 of them. And we can't see them in the dark, but we can hear them as they're coming. And all of a sudden, they just get completely quiet. We don't hear them anymore. They're very close to us on top of the hill, and they just kind of like disbanded and got quiet. Then we start hearing a different howl. And this howl is what we've heard before many times in the LBL. It's not a coyote, and it's not a dog. It's a different type of howl, which we relate to the dogman. And then we heard another howl behind us. Now we're sitting in an area that behind us there's a gravel road, and across that gravel road is a bay that's real shallow water, maybe 6 inches deep, and it goes into deeper water across to another side of an outlet that's very remote. We hear these creatures splashing through the water, running across this behind us, and they're howling as they're coming across. And I got a little nervous. I said, man, these things are coming. And Martin says, yeah, they're coming, boys, and I don't mind telling you, we got together what weapons we could find, and we got ready. We weren't looking for trouble, but we were going to stand there and get eaten alive. And then we hear them on top of the hill. Then we hear one to the left, and there was a large Bigfoot looking behind a cedar tree on the left of me, probably 80 yards from me, but I could see it real well. It would take his head and look at me, and I showed it to Barton, and they even showed it to him through the phone where it blew it up, and he said, yeah, I see it. And Martin's in the truck, and he's still feeling sick, and we hear these things. They've circled us, and there's a howl to the left, a howl deep in, there's a howl on that hill. These things are coming around us, and when I looked at Barton, I said, get ready, they're coming in. You better give it all you got. And Barton carries this huge sword that his main goal with that sword is to kill a dogman. It's been that way forever.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there waiting, and I'm a little nervous, but I got to fight these things off if they're going to attack us. And all of a sudden, I get no service in the LBL on my phone at all. Zero. I don't care where I'm at. I can't call anybody, and nobody can call me. It's like 11:40, I believe, at night was the time, and my phone starts ringing. It's right next to me. I'm going, how is that possible? And Barton looks at me like, what's going on? And Martin, well, answer it. I answered it. It was Beth Collinsworth. She is probably one of the most intuitive people I know. She's one of my admin in my group, and she's just had so many experiences with dogman living around her family farm in Tennessee. She says, where are you at? Are you in the LBL? Those were her words. And I said, we are. She goes, you and Barton and Martin? I said, yes. She goes, well, there's a feral man to the left, and there's a whole pack of dogmen about to attack y'all. I'm telling you right now, get in the vehicle and leave. Go now. I said, Beth, how did you call me? Are you sure? She goes, I'm 100% positive. Leave now. And we had a fire going, and Barton hears that, and I'm looking at him, and Martin's still in the truck, half sick. Martin grows, gets up, opens the door, as sick as he is, walks right by us, and I say, where are you going? Don't go in there. And he walks right into the woods where we can't even see him, below this big hill, and starts shouting some type of something that I couldn't hear, but it was loud. I couldn't hear all the words. And these things are howling, and I literally think they're about to attack us. And all of a sudden, he gets through shouting this scripture, he gets as quiet, you could hear a pin drop. We didn't hear another dogman the rest of the night. We didn't hear anything the rest of the night. It was as calm as it could be. He comes back, walks right by me, gets in the truck, and lays back in his seat. And I said, man, what did you do? He said, I'll tell you later. And he was still not feeling good. But that was the most remarkable thing I've ever seen happen. I mean, it was literally, we both thought these things were about to attack, and he did too. But he chanted out this verse, and they left.
It's amazing. I do have a question about that, if it's okay to ask.
Sure.
Well, do you remember how I told you I came face to face with one and got a picture of it?
I do, yes.
My daughter, she was very little at the time. She's going to be 18 this year. She was very little. This is when on our ranch in Texas, Dogman's Triangle, which didn't even know we lived in until this past year. Didn't even know what Dogman's Triangle was. In the book, the first book I wrote, 2019, I talk about that night. I opened up the Bible because I couldn't take anymore after years of this thing. There were multiples of them. The cattle were scared of them. They were killing all my animals, snapping their necks. I mean, it was just awful, all the things that were going on. And I opened up a Bible and I said something, and I did say, in the name of Jesus Christ and God, you are not welcome here. And I did this, and then I even talk about this in the book. This is published. It was like a void, the quietest I had ever heard my ranch. We were so far from anything. We didn't even have any lights out there because I built the house from the ground up. It was raw land before, and it was thousands and thousands of acres. So nothing, not even a vehicle. Our animals inside went quiet. And it was, what did he, do you know which particular prayer he used?
Yeah, I do. I've asked him numerous times, and of course we've been out a lot of times since that particular time, but the Lord's Prayer. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and that's what he recited very loudly, and I heard parts of it, but he was facing away from me, and he was in the woods a little way, but that's what he recited, and back in 2022, I had befriended a family of Bigfoot in Cheatham County, Tennessee, with my good friend Billy Howell. He actually befriended them and asked me to join him and help him with them, and because one of our high school friends lived there, and his girlfriend was there by herself. He was a over the road truck driver, and she was absolutely terrified because 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning these things were looking in the window, scaring her to death. She had never heard of a Bigfoot or a dogman, and what little she had heard, I'll take that back. She didn't believe in them, and we went down there and spent quite a bit of time turning this thing around for them. We were there from 2017 to about 2022, and we had a gifting spot, and we become friends with some of them. Not friends like I was with the ones I had on the river. These were a different type, and they weren't nearly as friendly. Mainly the female and the juvenile that was with her, Billy friended more than any, and he did see the 12-foot male. I never did see it. I seen a juvenile walk right up to my truck when I was pulling up one time, looked right in my window at me, and turned around and walked away. So, some of these creatures were not real friendly, but they were tolerating us being there, and the 2 or 3 of the other ones didn't like us there at all. And we were just trying to get them away from the house, and we told her to quit feeding. She would put scraps from the eating dinner out, and they would come and get those, and that was a lot what brought them to the house to begin with. And she would put garden vegetables and melons and stuff on the deck, which was about 10 foot off the ground, and they would come and get those. So we talked her into having some very, very bright street lights put up around her house, and also some trail cameras, and that did stop them. They still came to as a matter of fact, they tore the garage door off this particular house, the garage behind it, last year. Tore the door completely off the hinges. So they're not a real friendly bunch. They're a little aggressive. Now, I haven't been down there myself in quite a few years. 2022, we had a super weird thing happen one night. I seen this massive, before that happened, there was a possum. I didn't know it was a possum. Billy and I are sitting in the woods close to the gifting area. He's at the bottom of the hill with his FLIR. I'm closer to the top of the hill behind a massive big tree with forks in it. I'm sitting there in my little chair waiting for these creatures to come in with my flashlight. We just observed them. We weren't there to harm them or cause them any problems. And some of them accepted us and some of them didn't. this particular night, probably 100 yards away, I could see what looked like a tiny light, like about the size of a light bulb in your house. It was coming across the floor of the forest. It was way off, and I was watching it. It was getting closer and closer and closer to me, and it disappeared as it went through a ravine, and then it popped up out of the ravine, and it was still coming toward me. And I'm thinking, what is that? And Billy was probably 50 yards from me, and of course we were trying to be as quiet as we could, and we had a clicker. I'd click when I'd seen something, and he'd do the same. It's just a form of communication that we had put together. 3 clicks left, 4 clicks, just that kind of stuff, and this thing was coming, but he had seen it too coming, and it was getting really close to me, and I'd never seen anything like that, a light bulb just coming across the ground like that. It comes all the way up next to the tree. It's coming right to me. I'm right behind this tree with big forks. I can see through the forks. And it's about to get to me. Well, I stood up. I pulled out my 45 and pulled the trigger back. I didn't know what this thing was. I was going to fire on it. He hits this huge bright spotlight that he has sitting down from me, and it lit up the whole woods. This thing turned into an opossum. It turned into an opossum. It opened its mouth. It was maybe a foot from my leg. Opens its mouth, hisses at me, and turns around and goes back where it came from in its natural form. I could see the silhouette of it for a little ways before it disappeared because it was in the dark. Then maybe 30 minutes later, I'm weirded out because this has happened, and Billy says, "Man, what was that? I never seen anything like that." And then about 30 minutes later, there's 2 huge, the size of beach balls, 2 huge orbs come down from the sky through the trees, right in front of me and right in front of Billy. Like I said, he's to the left, and these 2 things come down through the trees. There are 2 of them about the size of beach balls. I've actually got photos of these things. It's hard to tell what they are in the dark, but anyway, and both of them stop about a foot above the ground. They're pulsating. You can see like lightning, like almost inside of them. They're pink, orange, and red, both of them. They're pulsating. They're about a foot off the ground. We watch these things for a good 25, 30 minutes. I'm getting pretty freaked out because I tell Billy, I said, "Man, come on up here." So he came up there next to me, and I said, "I don't know what's going on tonight. This is a very strange night. And what do you think we ought to do?" And we watched these things for a little bit. Then they started moving. They moved a little bit toward me, about a foot off the ground. They went down the hill toward the gifting spot we had, where we laid food for them and gifts all the time. And about that time, we get a ring. The girl in the house behind us that we're there for rings Billy's phone. It goes off. It's in his pocket. She goes, "Get up here. These creatures are at my window. They're looking in. There's 3 of them." So we take off running down this trail back to the house. It's about 150 yards to back to the house. It's a real remote area out in the woods. It's near a game reserve. And we get back to the house, and of course the creatures are gone by then. But I realized I had been zapped, because when I stopped running, I could barely move. I had so much adrenaline, I took off and didn't even know it, and I had a massive headache. I sat down in my truck and leaned over to try to get my senses back. Billy did the same thing in his truck. I had met him down there because I had worked that day. And I wake up, I fall asleep, and I wake up about a couple hours later. My watch had completely stopped at 11:20 something. My phone wouldn't work. All of our electronics went dead. The alarm on my car had went off for like 30 minutes, and you couldn't turn it off. We tried to turn it off. There was no way to turn it off until it just died on its own. And my truck, not my car. And we were kind of weirded out. We lost some time somewhere in between there. We don't know how we did that, but we know we did. And the next morning, I get up and right at daylight, probably 5 o'clock in the morning, and on the back of my truck tailgate, there's a massive handprint, the biggest handprint I've ever seen in my life. My hands are big. I'm talking about this thing was 3 times the size of my hand. and it must have been so much force shaking that truck to get the alarm to go off. We tried, and we couldn't get it to go off. But my point to this whole story is after this ended, I said, man, I'm not going down there for a while. That place has gotten weird. Well, Benny says, let's try one more weekend. A weekend comes by, the next weekend we go down. It's raining this particular night. We're in the same area. We have a plastic deer blind that Billy had brought down there where we wouldn't get wet. And you just sit in it, and it's just like got a little hole where you can see out of it. We have these white orbs that just start coming out of everywhere. There's 7 of them. And they're about the size of a softball. And they are flying around us so fast. I mean, just whipping around trees. And they're flying around the little deer blind, flying in between us inside and going out. And I said, man, I've had enough of this stuff. This is crazy. So me and him both left. Go home. On the way back, I tell him I'm staying away from that place for a couple of weeks because, or maybe longer, some weird stuff going on down there. We haven't done anything to these creatures. We've tried to be friendly with them, and there's no issue that I feel like we have with them. And 2 weeks went by, and then they started attacking my farm. And this went on for from June to about the middle of July. At 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had a large house set way back off the road, 3,300 feet off the road, that I built in the 90s, and I lived there for 20-something, almost 30 years. And these things would start banging on the... Thank gosh my kids weren't there. They were with their mother where she lived, and they banged on the side of the house so hard that it actually vibrated the pictures on the wall. And then they would run to the other side of the house and do the same thing. And I'd run outside with my gun, me and my dog, and there's nothing there. And I would go back inside and sit, and they'd start again. This went on for about 2.5 months. They killed every cat I had. I had a bunch of barn cats. They really weren't my cats. I just came there and had kitten after kitten, and they would come on my porch at night, and I would leave food for them, and before I went to bed. And they killed probably 25 or 30 of those. They were everywhere, just ripped apart. They tore my fence up behind my house. I had an in-ground swimming pool, and they bent it all up. They punched a hole through my pool house to try to get the floodlight out that I left on. They broke the floodlight. They bent the fence gate down, going in and out. My horses were so scared. I heard them at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't sleep at night. I just knew that about 2 or 3 o'clock this was going to start, and I'll be sitting in the hallway with my 270 automatic rifle and my 357 Magnum. I was thinking these things are going to come through my front door and get me, and they wanted to kill me for some reason. I never figured out what I ever done to them, but I would walk down my long driveway, and I had 2 horses on my left side that had a barn to go in, and I had a stable on my right for my other 2 horses. The ones on the right were geldings, and the ones on the left were mares. And they were so terrified, they were going crazy. I had a street light up next to each corner of the driveway there that I had installed. They were getting up under that light as close as they could. So whatever this was that was terrifying them wouldn't bother them. Well, the little black horse I had on the right side was a complete stud. Nobody could ride him. Nobody could touch him. He was just wild as he could be. The only person that could ride him and talk to him and keep him calm was me. Anybody else, including my daughters, my parents, anybody, he would go crazy. Don't get around him. He's wild. These things braided his mane. Now, how they braided his mane, I don't know how they did it. Apparently, they infrasounded him. But this went on for, like I said, 2.5 months. These horses were so terrified, they never, ever again went back in the stable, and they never again went back in the barn. I had put a big, large roll of rolled hay under that light where they could stand there at night and eat it, and where they could get some nutrition, because they normally graze. But they were scared to death of these creatures. I don't know how many there were. I think there were 2. There could have been 3. They were rogues. They broke a massive tree in front of my house that I looked at off my front porch. They broke the big limb out of it. For me, I don't understand what I'd done to them, not anything that I knew of. Well, it all come down to one night. I was getting fed up with it because I got no sleep at night. I was up every night. I'd have to take my kids back to their mother before dark because I was afraid. I didn't want them to witness any of this. And one night, I heard them coming, and it sounded like there was 2 or 3 of them, and they were on my front porch. Now, my front porch was huge. It was like 20 foot deep and like 30 foot long, and it was an overhang, had white columns on the front of it, and it was a wood plank porch. They were walking on the porch. I seen them walk past the big round window I had in the door, and 2 of them had walked by. Well, when they walked by, I thought for sure they were coming in. About that time, I hear a huge slam. I thought they were trying to break the door down. I was ready to fire when they come through the door, and all of a sudden, after that big slam, it got quiet, and my floodlights came on the outside of my porch. And I opened the door. I was so mad and tired of these things that wouldn't leave me alone. I opened the door, and laying in front of my door is a dead goat. I just stepped over it. It's laying in my doorway. I about tripped over it. These things had thrown a dead goat up on my front porch with no head, and I don't even have a goat, and none of my neighbors have goats. So I don't know where it came from, but I was mad. I walked down the steps. It was in the middle of a dark. I sat down in my front yard, which was a huge front yard, and I yelled at them, "Come on, come and get me. Let's get it on right now. I've had enough of this." And I sat down and I waited on them till daylight the next morning. I didn't see them or hear them again that night. And I went back in, and I knew it was going to start again, so I called my close friend Scott Carpenter, the late, great Scott Carpenter, who was such a great friend to me and a lot of other people, one of the greatest researchers that's ever lived on this earth. And I said, "Scott, I told you what was going on a while back. I got to get rid of these creatures." He says, "Rebuke them. Rebuke them." I said, "How do I rebuke them?" He said, "First of all, do you believe in Jesus Christ, and you believe that in your heart?" And I said, 100%. Say prayers every day, 3 or 4 of them.
Angels say that.
And he said, "Rebuke them. What you do is you go to all 4 corners of your house, you go to all 4 corners of your property, and you say, 'I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. Leave my property, my animals, and me alone, and don't come back.'" I did it. I did it. I did it twice, exactly like he told me, because he had done the same thing at his house a few years before that. They followed him home. And the next night, that night, I'm sitting there with my gun and both guns waiting for them to come again because I wasn't sure I really believed that was going to happen that easy to get rid of them. But they never came back. Never came back.
Wow. Well, it does work sometimes. I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of resistance with it. But you know what I'm noticing here?
What's that?
It's a pattern. Okay, so when I was on my ranch, I had seen several of these beasts. But you mentioned the plasma balls or the light balls, which, by the way, the angel said the glowing in the amber eyes without, like, not eye shine, but the glowing, they said that's plasma because of where they come from. But what I'm noticing, so I wrote in my book so I have a Ford F-250 Super Duty 2012 diesel. It takes 2 batteries. Okay, I've had that truck since 2013. And when I first bought it, it was practically brand new. Okay? Only had like 40,000 miles on it. Took it out to my ranch, and we were living there at the time. The alarm would go off constantly in my truck. Constantly. The batteries would die at both of them every single month. So every month, I was taking the batteries in. My husband had a truck, so we'd drive his truck in. The mechanics could not figure out why. They were like, "This is the weirdest thing we have ever seen." And it was over the course of from 2013 or 14 all the way to 2017. Just the entire time we lived there. Eventually, something went so wrong in my truck that it would just flash, but you couldn't hear the alarm anymore. And what was weird is when we moved here in Massachusetts, something kept setting the alarm off, and we didn't know what it was. There was no one outside. It was always in the middle of the night. But in Texas, it would make it go dead constantly. constantly. So I'd be stuck there, because I worked on the ranch while my husband drove to Austin to work. Well, other things that happened, and I wrote about this, there was one time I'm sitting in my truck. All of a sudden, I see all of this swirling wind going around my truck, and I write about this. There's these balls of light, little orbs, all just swirling around my truck, and I look in my side view mirror, and I see something standing there. And then I hear angels, and they say, start praying. And my truck would go on and off, on and off. We wound up having to disconnect the radio because whatever was messing with my truck, it was screwing up all the wiring. Well, one day I got a picture, and I still have the phone from then, of the biggest wolf-looking print. It was a little deformed, too, that I've ever seen in my life, and I have someone trying to recover that for me. And no one believed me. I was like, this is not my dogs, because I had wolf hybrids, huskies, but it was not them. And I'm just seeing a lot of similarities here with the patterns of these creatures and everyone's experiences. There's just so many patterns.
Yeah, I think everything in this world like that, especially the paranormal, the Bigfoot, the dogman, the UFO, I really believe that all of it's connected in some way, and I don't know exactly how, but that's probably kind of off the cuff, but I've felt that way for quite a while. Now, I've never seen an alien. I think I've seen some UFOs, but, I've seen some pretty crazy stuff in the forest. I've seen some creatures that I don't even know what to call them in the forest, so I don't know what they are. I've never seen anything or heard anything about what are they even existing. So, do what now?
Can you describe one of them? Is it like the ones that crawled up the tree, or?
Oh, the one that crawled up the tree was the first time I'd ever seen that. That was in March of 24, and Martin and Barton were behind me. They also seen that creature run up the top of a tree, and it made clicking noises. It was strange, and there was some more behind me on the hill somewhere, clicking back at it. So, no, I've seen numerous creatures. Another creature I seen looked like it was the size of a grizzly bear. It was sitting on the side of the road in the trace, off the trace. That's a super remote area. It was sitting there when we went by it. Martin was driving. Ron was on the passenger front seat, and I was in the rear behind Martin, and Martin was on the other side behind Ron. And we're riding down the trace, and late in the morning, and we'd been to our area that we go to, and we both spotted it, Martin and I did, and we slowed down real quick, and this thing was sitting on the side of the road. It was about the size of a grizzly bear. It was sitting on its bottom. It had the head of an anteater. And I've never seen anything like that. And it was full, huge form, and it was looking around, looking at us, and I tried to get out, and he backed up. I was going to get out and try to take a picture of it, and about that time, it ran off into the woods behind where it was sitting. So that's one of the creatures. I don't know what it was. I've never seen anything like that.
I wonder what the angels would call that one. Well, I don't know. There's a reason you were supposed to see all these things, and and that's what the angels have taught me with other people. And that thing that went up the tree, you know how many Appalachian cases I have of those things, and they do the clicking, but there's also Texas hunters with their scopes. They've seen these things, and they've seen them sniff. They crawl on all four like a spider. One man in Texas, he watched this thing, and it sniffed where he was, and then it looks up, sniffs the air, and then it imitates a woman saying, help me. And I think he heard the clicking sound too. It's very bizarre. These are very dark creatures. And my concern is that the angels said, and they had me publish this, there are going to be thousands and thousands of dogmen and other creatures and species coming out of these NEXUS portals. Because they told me that's the sound that Martin heard. I've heard it. A lot of other people have heard that sound. It is the sound of a NEXUS opening or closing. It sounds like a metal door.
I've got a friend in Tennessee that's on an active spot right now, and I'm the only one he's told, and he messages me every day. He is right behind his house, not far from where he lives. He's been watching a dog man come down and feed on chicken that he left it. And he's been watching it for about 6 months now, and he informs me on what happens every day and asks me what he should or shouldn't do. And I've told him about the rebuking part because I believe that'll stop any of them if you're a Christian in your heart. And he does carry a weapon, but he's seen this thing yesterday. First time he's seen both of them together. He's seen the female and the male. That's the first time he's seen them together. And the female, when it was on all fours. And the reason why he knows it's a female because two of the dogman pups came over to next to him a couple of months ago and were letting him rub them. They just pet them. He said they were the strangest looking things in the face. Their teeth were different. Their eyes were different. But they were real friendly and they didn't try to harm him. None of these creatures have. And then they went back over to where their mother was. But he's seen both of them yesterday for the first time. He said the male was a lot bigger than the female. They're both on all fours, but when they stand up on two legs, you can hear a popping, cracking sound like they're not supposed to do that for some reason. And he says when they go over the hill and disappear out of his sight, he's in a thick wooded area, and they've noticed him. He's been brave enough to be in there for 4 or 5 months now, and they've gotten a little used to him, and they're tolerating him and gaining a little trust in him. They haven't tried to harm him. They haven't growled at him. They haven't done anything in an aggressive manner, and he's 50 yards from them. He leaves them raw chicken, and they come to eat it. And they don't come every night, but he'll see them 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes he don't see them at all when he goes in there. But the weird thing, when they go over the hill, a certain area, close to a lake where he lives, he says you can hear what sounds like tin on a tin roof rubbing together. So when he told me that yesterday, I said, you need to be really careful, James, because that tin, a lot of times that metal rubbing against noise or slamming door of metal is a portal opening up, a lot of people believe. And it's also proven that a lot of people that have heard that disappear. So
yes.
Be real careful where you're at and don't get near that noise. And, he's going to report to me again today, but he's been pretty protective and pretty smart on what he should and shouldn't do.
Well, if you ever want me to ask anything for him, you can just text or call or send him my info because it's getting really serious. This is really ramping up. The angels are literally speaking of us needing at some point in the future to fight back. They said there's thousands. They couldn't even give me a number about how many of these NEXUS portals are going to be. I mean, it's concerning. It's really concerning. And I grew up with Catholics, Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and so many other kinds of belief systems. I just want, I don't like the label, but I do always say I belong to the heavens and the light and the Creator. And so,
as long as we all believe that and trust, in the faith and Jesus Christ, in my opinion, we're all on the same path. I don't care what religion you're in; that's up to you. But it has a lot to do with what's in your heart too, in my belief. But these creatures in the Bible, it does state in there that they will become numerous. You'll see more and more of them during the end of time. So,
I have so many Bibles going back some hundreds of years, and I have stuff in there I found werewolf stuff and with the stuff and even vampire stuff, which is weird. But I've also seen it's been removed in some of the newer, editions. I've got some really old Bibles here.
It's really difficult for me with that, and I've had a discussion with many people about that. I grew up in a really conservative Christian family. My parents made me go to church every time the door was open till I was 18, and they're still the same way. They're still very devoted, and I'm not. I'm a believer, and I pray, and I do things I should, but I'm not a churchgoer every time the door is open. But I do say this, that I think that there's with all the books that I've heard, and how true it is, I don't know, but there's at least 5 or up to 9 books missing from the Holy Bible. So it's difficult to me. I guess you do the best you can and try to live Christ-like, but at the same time, with all those books missing, and lots of people, the Romans were supposed to be the ones that took some of them. The Catholic Church is supposed to took some of them. I don't know how true that is, and I have no idea if any of it's true. But if there's any books missing, how do we live completely like the Bible?
I know. It's just, I asked the angels that because I said they're the ones who told me to go read the Bible. They would give me specific scriptures, like exactly where it was, because they're like, we want you to know this, learn this, and learn this, and this, and this, and prophecy, and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, it sucked, but I had to do it. And I grew up reading them too. And so from just being in a tug of war of that, and I've always been the best person I could be, and I've always told the truth, and I've seen a lot of stuff since I was little. And they were the ones who led me to the Bible, and they said, you need to read it. And they showed me, they said, not everything is in here, but some of it's true, some of it's been corrupted, and that it's not supposed to be this way. Everyone's supposed to love each other and understand what's really out there so you can protect yourselves. And that's when they showed me where these werewolf rites were to save people from them. And there's so much, Darrell.
We could definitely talk about this for days, but I do agree with you. There's a lot of unproven facts about it, and a lot of scrutiny about real and not real. And I don't think none of us will ever know till that day comes. We just have to try to live the best we can and present ourselves to others like we would want to be presented. So that's what I live by. So
I live by that too, especially after I died with my daughter in my womb and we came back.
oh my gosh, you tell me about that. That's terrifying. But you were blessed. You were blessed.
They said God saved you from death and you need to do your work now. So that's what I do. Do the best I can, and I got led to you, Darrell.
Well, I'm honored for you to ask me to be on your show here. I can only tell you what I've experienced and what I've revealed and learned on my own. I'm surely no expert at anything except saying my prayers every day. So, but things are going on, and I see a lot of bigger things happening, and I see more. There's a lot left for me. I know that for sure. So I got some weird stuff going on right now that I'm working on, and I'll just have to see how that turns out. So it's a little bit frightening. I don't get scared very easy, but there's some pretty crazy stuff that's happening right now with the dogman. So
you have to tell me about it this time.
I basically was into Bigfoot so long, and after my friendship with my family on the Cumberland River back in '99 to almost 2004, end of 2004, well, early 2005. I was such close friends with those, and they were truly like my real family to me. I trusted them; they trusted me. After that, unless I could find another family like that again, I don't have the instinct to go out and Bigfoot anymore. So I personally believe that Bigfoot finds you, you don't find him, and it has a whole lot to do with what's in your heart. They can read you. They know what your thought plans are, and if you do want to see one, don't go into the woods with a gun, a camera, or bright colors on. So
said all of that too. They said that they feel our frequency and our true intentions and can actually be telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really neat. But there is a future coming with that I'll probably talk to you about privately one of these days.
Sounds good. Yeah, just be yourself if you want to try to experience one and act yourself. Go in the woods, talk, chat. If you got any kind of musical instrument, play it. Ground yourself. When I first started going into the area I'm not used to, I take my shoes off and ground myself because These creatures are the Chai-Tanka, which the Lakota Sioux call them, which means great watcher of the forest, the elder of the forest. And when you go into the woods, you're in their home. It's like them coming to your front door and sitting in your living room. So have complete respect for them and the land, and treat them the way you would want to be treated, and they'll pick up on that from you, and your chances are a lot greater.
It's true. I got a couple families in New England and in the Appalachian Mountains right now, so we're going to be traveling there soon. But, I'm so honored that you took the time. A lot of people are usually very nervous about being in the public eye about this, but you're amazing, extraordinary. I'm so honored.
You're very kind. Thank you very much. I've been so blessed to do so many of these over the years. The only thing I normally worry about or get upset about it is I don't want to have to tell the same story. People get tired of hearing it, but that's pretty much how it started for me. And there's been a lot of other things that happened over the years too, and I'm sure there's more to come. So thank you for having me on.
Well, we'll have to do more, and then you can share what you want, and I'll send everybody over to your podcast. And then I want to tell you something real quick. Mr. Tim Coonbo, right? Baker.
Tim Coonbo Baker is one of the best there is.
He mentioned that horn and about the Nephilim being a part of that particular type. I'm going to ask the angels, record it, and see what they say, because they actually have talked about the Nephilim many times. So. Well,
that particular horn is called a shofar.
Yep.
So Tim Coonbo Baker is a personal friend of mine. Matter of fact, we spoke at the same conference together the last 2 years, and I've got another conference coming up with him in the Tennessee Wildman Conference he'll be at. So Tim is completely remarkable. He's one of the best in the field, and he's just a brilliant guy. He really is, and a super close friend to me, and he's a very wealth of knowledge. He knows a lot. He grew up with these creatures. When he was a little boy, they were on his farm. So he's one of the best there is out there, and I'm honored just to call him my friend.
I'm honored, to call you my friend, so I can't even imagine with him.
Well, I mean, we've both had similar incidents, and he's got a lot that he's shared, and I have a lot I shared. I don't try to make a difference between either of us. I just respect him, and I appreciate the fact that he feels the same about me.
Yeah, y'all are good men, and we need more of that in the world. So thank you for helping with all of this stuff, Darrell.
Oh, we got a long ways to go. We still got some stuff that we're planning on. Ron Morehead, myself, and Martin Groves, and a guy named Mike Smith, who's been with us quite a bit, and possibly even Barton Nunley. We've got a couple of real serious adventures that we're going to try to dive into within the next year. And we had planned to go to Port Locke, Alaska last year, but everybody got sick. Martin was very sick, and Ron had a surgery. So we got some special things that we're going to do that probably a lot of people think we're crazy, but we're not done yet.
Well, I think the whole world's going crazy, my Lord. We're the sane ones. We're disclosing the truth. Anyway. Well, I can't wait to hear about that. I can't wait till you share it. And I love Ron's book.
Ron's got a new series out, the Sierra Sounds, that finally got produced. Y'all try to catch that. And, of course, Ron and I have our own radio show for the last year. It's called Real Cryptid Legends. It's on every other Monday night at 9 o'clock Central, 10 Eastern. And our great friend and my close friend, Miss Michelle Desrochers, is our moderator and our manager. And appreciate you tuning into that. And I will be at the Tennessee Wildman Conference on August the 8th. And I've got a couple other things I'll be doing in between then. And if you're not a member of my group, Bigfoot Believers and Other Creatures, come over there and join. Don't be afraid to tell anything. We don't allow any criticism or ridicule in our group.
And I can back that because I've been a part of it since I shared what me and my daughter went through and how we.
You are one of my group experts. Thank you.
I just love you so much. All right, then. I'm going to stop this here.